Hello. XDWC2025 has been and went. It's been an incredible 6 weeks of competition over 5-point scoring maps and 300 plus players. Many BBWRs have happened along the way, along with many different routes, challenges and tricks and tribulations. Thank you to all of our mappers, thank you to everybody who played. Goblin won last year with a commanding lead. Can he back that up once again? Round 0 was a long warm-up map made by Amino. It had some fantastic practice sections in the back of the room and a tricky pre-run at the start. There were no points for this one, but there were some great routes from many different players. The pre-run was a bit annoying, but following that was a straight line into a techie spiral staircase. Then you dropped down and had an option to take an inside or outside slick carrying more or less speed through the section into a lava technical room with a top slick route or a bottom pads route, then keeping your speed around a tough corner with some broken tiles, through a warp zone which was strange for some players, then onto a fast slick section with some rockets, having a turnaround up a wall off of a ramp jump, keeping all of the speed you could into pretty much a straight line to the finish, but you did have to dodge some rocks and go over a few broken tiles again. Keeping speed into the finish could be tricky for some, but some were able to do it fantastically. There were 179 players and a surprise entrant into the top 20 was El Mangione, who has been playing a lot of VQ3 recently, but we weren't seeing him too much on the CPM side of things, and he surprised us with a top 20 in this run. Plaza coming in 12th would be a sign of things to come potentially. He's made an incredible improvement over the last year, so let's see what happens over the rest of this tournament for Plaza. Goblin continued right where he left off from last year with an incredible 1.3 second victory over Woe, who came in second. His final rocket to gain 200 units a second and get the height over straight into the finish was absolutely incredible, and the way that he kept his speed around the rest of the map mesmerised many. This week didn't have as much grinding as the future weeks, of course, because there were no points on offer, but it was a great display of what was to come from many different players. The interesting fact about this map was that exactly sub 1 minute was required to get yourself into the top 20. There was no African champion for this week. Dez took the South American Continental Championship title, Carnate took the Oceania, Woodjizzer for Asia, Source for North America and Goblin for Europe. On to round 1 now, a classic hard strafe map by Cool and VP, a beginning of things that came throughout this year. There were many routes around this map and all seemed well balanced, with different routes offering good alternatives for different playstyles. As often happens with this map though, an unfortunate shortcut was found, making one route the clear option for the middle section, double jumping off of a section of barriers. Most routes at the start of this map followed fairly the same route, but at the end things became a little different. You'd start off by taking the stairs straight out of the gate, and then going to the left, following it round, double jumping carefully up the ramp and then getting it onto the ledge to get 2 down ramps on the sloping section. Take a double jump across and the stairs up the side. Some people opted to try and get a little extra speed off of the little huts down in the bottom, as others went all the way around to get their spacing for that double jump. Take the shortcut, keep it smooth around on the inside, get your double jumps and your down ramps, go through. Especially careful up the ramp, the red ramp, into the next room, and this is where the routes split. You could take a more inside line with a little bit of a trick off of some of the scenery, or take it wider, carrying more speed, but the important thing was you had enough speed to make the gap right before the finish and get yourself as fast as possible down the final straight into the finish. That didn't make the map any less interesting to watch though, as micro optimizations were found between players so they could make all the correct spacing with the different levels of strafe efficiency. 192 players this week, and no surprises in the top 20 so far, other than a few players such as Woodjizzer and myself not expecting how much would improve since last year. Delta's 5th place run opened a new route to use for the second part, taking scenery to take a tighter inside line, and while Frosty and Shinx optimised the more intended wider path, Goblin took the tightest line and pushed ahead to a small victory over Source. This week rewarded the hard strafers. Would anybody have pushed too hard, burned themselves out before the tournament really began? For the first week, the top 20 of course looks exactly the same overall as it does for just this round. The top 20 is spread by 250 points and the top 10 by just over 100. round 2 now, and it's the return of the antholes with Freddy. If last round had some unintended routes, then this route clearly didn't. Everything here was intended, surely. The map started with multiple options, the most common being a thin slick wall run, then a tight around the first corner. After that, it was getting good spacing to the up ramp, where you were given a rocket launcher and a mortar. You could have 3 mortar shots or 1 mortar and 1 rocket, and that was how much ammo you were given. There were a few paths through every room here. Go up the floor for a shorter but harder route to keep speed, or get full speed through the velocity pad at the end, and around the back corner up ramp to keep as much speed as possible. Then given 2 options, with a vortex to shoot a target and push yourself down onto the slick through an anthole, or stay high and keep as much speed as possible strafing over the top of some barriers. Can you slick hard enough to make it worth it? A short wide room to set up for a ramp jump, where it's possible to grab a rocket launcher, then take a 180-degree turn around and head up through a tricky steep ramp. You could either go to an upper or lower route, the upper anthole being the tightest finish, but a lower route had a possibility to jump over the anthole or take the anthole itself. Finally, it was a ramp surf over the swim of shame and into the finish. There were 180 players for this round, and Plaza proved me right for believing that he'd improved a lot since last year, putting himself firmly in a position for top 10 overall. He was the first to show off an incredible thing route by going down into the safe bounce pad route and getting double firing rockets to exit the turnaround with incredible speed. Please check out the live review for the reactions and slow-mo view of all of these runs, because so many things got executed and it's impossible for me to explain them here. The next few runs returned to extremely good strafing and thingless routes. They added routing to have the last second rocket skip over the steep ramp to keep as much speed into the possible into the final room. Delta and Frosty return with their things, and then we move on to Goblin, who had gone nearly a second faster than Frosty's excellent execution of the thing, but he'd said in the live chat that he didn't know about the booster route for the extra rockets, so we're excited to see what he'd actually pulled off. With a great start to the run, he pulls off an incredible pre-fire rocket stack up the ramp to get an incredible finish, which you absolutely must see in third person. And then after all this, having the fastest slick exit by far, he truly stamped his authority on this tournament at this point. Goblin leads the overall 125 points over Frosty. The next 5, only 100 points. Switch from hard strafe to hard weapon shuffled the overall order a lot here. Last week the top 20 was split by 250 points, and this week it goes up to 350, the overall being spread by more than 600 points in the top 20. Round 3 now, and VP is back with a very long slick and strafe map. There are many routes at the start of this map, merging into the one lane until the finale. There are 158 players on this map, the slowest of them coming in an incredible 11-minute 22-second run, an absolutely incredible marathon for that guy, but well done to everyone who completed the map, because it wasn't the easiest of things to complete. We started out with a thinly aimed circle jump, up a set of stairs and onto a double jump which took us onto some slick. You had to get as much speed as possible out of this to then throw it up some stairs, take it over the bounce pads and get the best route you possibly could off of a little ramp. There were many routes to take through here, and then you merged back into the same sort of route through the middle section for a very long time, with some little adjustments on various parts of it. Dropping down, getting as much speed off of a side ramp and jumping across a gap backwards and forwards before hitting some tiny little ice pads that were possible to be slicked, but was anybody going to be able to take advantage of that? Flying around a corner, getting as much speed off of a small side ramp, you then drop down a big pipe, taking as much speed into that as possible, then dropping onto some slick. A big 180 slick for most players, sending it through a teleporter that keeps its speed and strafing down a long hallway to take that upper chute off of a ramp, fling it round to the finish, potentially take some slick on the outside, and avoid bonking your knees on any of these hideously repainted purple steps from last year. A small slick section would then fling you into the up round into the finish, but was anybody able to make a shortcut that was prophesised on day one? The slick on this map scared a lot of people, with Goblin being one of the best slick players in the world. It was then decided to try and bully some people from Quake 3 to join us. Lith took up the challenge and started playing from this round, putting in a convincing 13th place position despite having only played for half the week and having never played Xonotic before. Silney drops into the top 20 to say hi after a little while away from the game, and Snow uses his third person prowess to make sure his slicks are absolutely perfect all the way to the edge of the slick patches. There were some incredible runs on this map, but JH was the first person to pull off the ending shortcut, getting up on top with not a lot of speed but definitely saving a lot of time in the process. We then saw a return to normal route with Woe, who took it very perfectly around the final corner with his incredible AD strafing. Gibbs and Delta on 69 seconds showed us two different ways to take the shortcut, with Delta taking a shorter inside line onto the very closest to the wall one, able to get a double jump off of some extra scenery on the side to get up as well. Shinx was the first to show you could carry quite a lot of speed over the shortcut, Frosty doing it even better. Some of these runs were going for alternative start strategies, bouncing off of the pillars that were in the centre of the room, getting over that ramp to not lose as much speed, or potentially going off of the scenery in the wall and landing on very pixel perfect edges to get across. Anything to lose slightly less speed because you carried it for such a long time in this map. Of course, your final winner was Goblin, who set an incredible time of a 106.26 on the second day of the map being out. Less than 24 hours in and he would already take the win by an incredible amount of time, but on the last day he comes back to improve his time to a 105.72, absolutely dominating this map. There was nothing he did exceptionally special, he just did everything and all of the shortcuts better than anybody else had managed to do. It was very scary to watch this and I had to slow down the game for the entire run to half speed just to see what was going on at many points. The highlight of his run for me was certainly the exit of the chute going up, where he turns around and curves the wall ride to gain an incredible amount of speed exiting from that section, coming out with 1362 speed. The gaps in time on this map were absolutely incredible to see. There was some incredibly close runs and some absolutely massively far apart, but with different routes coming in at exactly the same time, the points ended up being split not as great as they could have otherwise been due to the length of this map. After round 3, Goblin has just under 200 points ahead of Source, with Frosty in third. The top 10 split by only 500 points, and the top 20 is now up to 1,000 points between 1st and 20th. Round 4, a map by JH Height, a confusing map that looped back on itself, centred around ammo conservation. You start out on a thinly edged platform in the grind room and given a rocket launcher and 2 rockets to get you into the first tunnel. It was possible to pre-fire a rocket and get over a barrier at the back, or you had to go around and hit a sideways bounce pad. After that, you drop down and were given 11 explosive ammo and shown boxes dangling from the roof to shoot with the Hagar. Shoot the blue one for 15 seconds of haste, or the orange ones for a little speed push. There was definitely a lot of technicality with this as to when to shoot them and what order and how many times. After that, you had to go up a little step, possibly collect a Krylink and decide whether to go through the push pad in the sky. It was then into the caves with a left and right lane, one faster and longer, the other shorter and slower. The quickest path for each player would be very different. At the end of the cave, you dropped down and were given a mortar which shed the same ammo of the Havar, so you had to save some for this. That or the previous Krylink could be used to gap over the lava and make it quickly to the strength powered rocket. Fire yourself as fast as possible up the tube and back into the Hagar room, up a ramp chute at the back which sent you really quickly towards the start, gapping over the first rocket box and into the Finn land. There are only 120 players for this very tricky to complete map, and the most surprising in the top 20 was Christy Donk, a recent player for this game, only starting last year, not putting in many great performances before this map. Their previous best position was 33rd in round 2 of this year, but they put in a fantastic performance to finish in 16th, and I hope to see them again in the top 20 in the future. There were so many incredible different routes on this map. Although it was pretty much one lane to go through, the number of weapon variety options that you had, from the Krylink, from the mortar, from the Hagar, how many shots do you take? Do you go for haste first or second? Do you Krylink pull when given the mortar and then use the mortar to get over the gap, or do you use the mortar for speed and Krylink boost, or do you go around the outside? We saw some incredible routes and they're definitely worth taking a look at. But of course, the most incredible at all, at top of the table, is Goblin with an absolutely monstrous run. When Delta got his 28.73, he asked how on earth did Goblin go nearly 0.6 seconds faster than him, because he just couldn't possibly see it. And then in the end, we saw what Goblin had done. He'd taken the shorter route through but kept as much speed as possible, using a boost from the Hagar off of the floor to gain speed and height and get through the cave section as fast as possible. Goblin entered the quad rocket section with the speed that some people were leaving it at. It was absolutely incredible. I haven't even mentioned half of the tricks that were pulled off at this map. It's absolutely well worth watching the full replay of this one. Commentating it with JH was an experience and a half. The saving grace on this map for the scores was the fact that it was only short, 350 points across the top 20, but there were definitely some previously in the top 20 that got knocked out by new players such as Christy and Amino coming in. After that, it means that the top 20 is split by 1,500 points. Frosty and Delta overtake Source, putting him down into 4th. The top 10 remains relatively the same other than that, but the rest of the top 20 was scrambled for sure. Finally, we move on to round 5, an incredible map by Coachgens, known generally as a troll mapper, but he's tried to be serious within the last year to get this XDWC map. He definitely did put in some trolling, and you please check out the meme review and secrets review, because the work that went into the secrets and stuff on that map, it was absolutely incredible. As for the actual map, you start out with a strong strafing section going left or right to the blue or orange route. Then it's around a tight corner and up some left to right stairs, only possible with Xonotic's auto jump. When exiting the stairs, you're given a mortar and you can use that to gain some speed, take some curved walls, up some ramps, or you can try and save some time by going up through some holes in the floor using the secondary fire of the grenade. Which route would be fastest in the end, only time would tell. When you exit there, you could take a long sliding ramp down to the outside, go round a Hagar wall ride and potentially take a Halak from the other side, or take the Hagar. Generally the Hagar would end up being preferred. There were many routes into the finish, but unfortunately due to the sliding walls on the slick path and it being slightly longer, it wasn't preferred by most of the top 20. So they took the slap route, hitting some buttons on the side to gain you speed and boost you up in the air, finally going over some incredibly cool bounce pads. This map is absolutely one of the favourite maps I've ever seen in XDWC. It was the perfect amount of frustrating and I can't possibly glaze it enough. A key point of interest on this map is definitely the Hagar. A lot of people struggled with the Hagar wall ride, so they might drop down not using it round the wall ride and catching the back of the side after the turn. They then use as much speed as possible, falling down into that slapping room to be able to carry on and get as good of a time as possible. The most incredible route definitely came from Shinx, who managed to be 1.3 seconds faster than Goblin at checkpoint number 4. How did he manage to do it? Well, he shot 3 perfectly timed pre-fire rockets, sending him through the floor at nearly 1700 ups, heading onto the side route, not the ramp slide, pushing himself to the outside at incredible speeds. He was then able to take a very fast Hagar section, most struggling to take it at only 1000 entry speed, but he was able to enter with 1500 and still get the height, and that wasn't even the fastest Hagar that we saw on this run. He carries a beautiful amount of speed through to the finish, skipping the final bounce and going all the way, beautifully strafing it into the finish. The most impressive Hagar section has to be the second place run from Delta. He was able to pre-fire Hagar shots into the wall to boost him up, meaning he could enter it at nearly 2000 speed, an absolutely monstrous amount of speed to be gaining Hagar from in this game. Not only did he do that once, he did it twice. He enters the slap section so fast that he has to slow down and look backwards to not overshoot the slap and be unable to gain his height from those buttons in the wall. But again, in first place with a clean sweep of all 5 maps this year, 6 including round 0, is Goblin. Now what did he do to go so much faster than these runs? We asked ourselves this the entire week. Everybody had incredible techniques, and we just didn't know what Goblin had done. He said in chat, what did he do? Nothing special. Well, nothing special was entirely correct. He did the general route that most people knew about with no extra things, but he executed it so perfectly, always being faster than everybody else. He gets a free extra grenade shot at the start with incredibly well timed pick up so that he gets this ammo back for free. He then lands perfectly on each of the ramps, going up and round the curved wall rides, and exits 1500 plus speed onto the ramp. Absolutely magical. He enters the Hagar section at 2000 nearly, keeps pre-firing the entire way around and has to slow himself down just the same as Delta to get through that slap section. So indeed, the run was nothing special. There were no major surprises in the top 20 this week, though Source had nearly his worst performance, only coming in 6th of course. Plaza just sneaks in to close out the top 20, over 10 seconds behind Goblin's incredible run, 370 points behind Goblin's best score. Finally, the overall scores. Goblin takes it with 5,086. In second, it's Frosty with 4,733. Delta comes in third with 4,725. Super close between those two. Shinx is in fourth, Source fifth, then Gibbs, Woe, JH, Snow. 2 rounds out your top 10, 2,000 points behind Goblin. Rainbow Shadow is in 11th, then Uchi, Cute Bones, Plaza, Kyle, myself, Slut MX Crab, Banano, Ninja, Woodjizzer and Kante rolls out the top 20, doing what he generally does every year, just sneaking around the top 20 every single week. 3,159 points, the bottom of the top 20. That is 2,000 points between the top and bottom. An incredible year for everybody. For the Continental overalls, we unfortunately only had 2 African players all year, so congratulations to Yummy Jams and Dark Terminal. Yummy Jams taking that one in points overall. Everything else was completely dominated by 1 player. Asia was taken by Woodjizzer, Europe had Goblin, North America had Source, Oceania had Kante, and South America, as always, had the wonderful Dez. This tournament, of course, is not just about the top 20. Thank you to absolutely everybody who played. Thank you to the wonderful mappers VP, Cool, Freddy, JH, and Kota for your incredible maps. Thank you to Morrow for running the servers, Mirio for organising so much of this, Dez for being an incredible admin, and of course, again, to every single person who played. A little bit of begging on the side, if you could possibly donate and you have the spare funds, please ask around. One of the admins will give you the link, or it is in the Discord, to be able to donate to the regular servers that we play on throughout the entire year and to the XDWC cause. I hope that everybody has enjoyed this video, enjoyed XDWC, because it has been a fantastic year. Thank you to everyone who turns up, but I hope you join us. For me, the videos have been incredible to make, and I hope you join me again when I'm recording the regular season stuff, which will return very shortly after this video is out, and that you join us on the regular servers as we play absolutely every day of the year, and it's a great time, a great place to hang out. For me, this has been the best year of XDWC. I've absolutely loved doing these commentaries, loved creating the videos, and it's been a great thing to see how many people turned up. With a grand total of 375 players, 92 of them completing every single round, this tournament has been absolutely fantastic, and this community is as strong as it has ever been. With all that to say, thank you very, very much. It has been fantastic. Congratulations to everybody who played. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next year.